And I'm curious, religion's come up a few times now throughout our discussion, and I know early on you mentioned your parents were atheists, and I'm just curious, what was your entry point into religion and at what part of your journey?
Well, as I said, I found Shelley Adams when I was 6 years old, and her mother was a Christian Science healer. And it was funny because I I always found a religious friend because something in my soul or spirit or whatever you want to call it believed, to my shame, that if I called out to somebody in silence in the dark, that there something heard me. And my first best friend was Catholic when I was 5, and until I became 6. And and I loved going to church with her and her family. There were 6 other kids, and but she would whisper when I spent the night. She'd whisper to me in the dark, "Annie Lamott, you're going to rot in for all eternity because you weren't baptized Catholic." And but then she also taught me the Hail Mary, and I had at a very early age a mantra, "Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee." But I had no idea what it meant. But if I said it over and over again, I could fall asleep. And and then when I found Shelley Adams's family, the mom, Lee Adams, read to us every morning from Mary Baker Eddy. And it really did. I didn't know what it meant except that Mrs. Eddy thought that I was a beautiful, perfect child of God, and I wasn't getting that from my family, and I wasn't getting that from the boys who rode by on bikes and threw rocks at me because I had kinky hair. So that was a huge part of my development spiritually. It wasn't even just the words of Mrs. Eddy; it was kind of the burble of Scripture, and sitting with Shelley's brother and sister, and Shelley and the mom. They had this huge easy chair where we all fit, and just hearing the murmur and burble. It was like a brook that was rolling over the hurt parts of me or the burnt parts of me, and it was just so cooling. And of course, my parents just thought Christian Scientists were crazier than you had to be. That Catholics were bad enough, but Christian Scientists. But so my whole up until I was 12, Shelley and I were best friends, and so I really grew up with a lot of what would turn out to be the basis of new thought. Science and Health is where Eckhart Tolle and Marianne Williamson and Carolyn Mace and all of the great new thought people begin. It is in the focus on the spirit and not the material. And so that's how it all began. And then when I was in my 20s, I was living out in this little new age, not new age, but hippie, druggy community. And I took a lot of LSD, and I was reading a lot of Buddhists and Ram Dass, the Hindus. And my dad, even though he was an atheist, you were allowed to like Buddhists because so many of the great avant-garde Buddhists, the great poets, Allen Ginsberg, Gregory Corso, and so on, were Buddhists. And Alan Watts, the great Buddhist writer, had a morning show on KPFA, which is our Pacifica station. I don't know if you have that in Canada, but every morning on KPFA. And so we would listen to it. And that was like Buddhism 101, like breathe and try to notice each breath. And so I tried to become a Buddhist or a Hindu because my father, because of his Christian missionary background as a Presbyterian, God's frozen chosen in Tokyo, hated Christians. And so I tried, even after he died, not to become a Christian. But it was all marbled in together. I found truth wherever I could. So I love Thomas Merton, Five Story Mountain, and Henry Nouwen, and I read them too. I read it all. It was like it was like a scarf that some sort of Holy Spirit energy crocheted together for me with Ram Dass's Hindu and Alan Watts's Buddhism and Thomas Merton and the New Seeds of Contemplation and Denise Levertoft's poem, a lot of spiritual poetry, and little by little, but I was getting drunker and drunker and drunker with every passing year too. And at 31, very drunk, I would go to this flea market in what used to be called the ghetto in Marin County, Marin City, where my church is. And there was a huge flea market there. And if you're hungover, you really crave fried food, a lot of coffee and fried food. And I could see this funky little ramshackle small church with this Charlie Brown tree in front of it. And I could hear gospel music coming from it, from the flea market, but I could also hear a lot of the gospel songs that were part of the American Civil Rights Movement that my parents had been very involved with the other left-wing intelligentsia. All those, we shall not be moved, and go down Moses, and swing low, sweet chariot, and we shall overcome. And I think grace sometimes just looks like exhaustion and having run out of any good ideas. And so I went over there to listen to the music, and I always left before the sermon. And the thing that kept me there was that the people didn't hassle me or try to get me to believe something or study with them and come to Bible study and figure out about this Jesus guy or try to discern who shot the Holy Ghost. They just let me be, and they got me glasses of water. I was really sick. And then a year later, I got sober, and I converted drunk. Let's see, I'm trying to remember back. I converted drunk, and I just kept going, and then I got sober. I had that kind of gap year from 31 to 32. And then when I got sober, I was able to sit there for the sermons and to, take what I loved and kind of leave the rest, and let it be enough. What a concept, let it be enough.
Let's get into the story of getting sober. Was
Mhm.
religion a big piece of this?
Religion never got me sober, and as far as I know, religion has never gotten anyone sober. And but what gets you sober is running out of any more good ideas and hitting a bottom that anyone with a eating disorder, anorexia, bulimia, dieting, gambling, sex and love addiction, food and drugs and alcohol. There's a point at which you're just done. You don't have any belief that you can get over it, but you're just done, and you've run out of any more good ideas to try to control your addictive behavior. There was a man when I first got sober who said something to me that I've never forgotten. He said, by the end of my drinking, I was deteriorating faster than I could lower my standards. And you just keep lowering your standards, trying this, trying that, trying to control it. I was also bulimic. I also weighed, no pounds. And I would wake up every morning so sick and in just such shame and confusion. Why can't I drink half of that? Why do I keep binging? Why do I keep? And finally, I had a friend who was sober, Jack Erdman, who's passed. And I called him and I said, hit me with your best shot. And he introduced me to some other alcoholics who were staying sober one day at a time. And I started hanging out with them instead of going to bars. And about a week passed and I wasn't physically ill anymore. And then I started learning very slowly how to live as a sober person, how to show up, um, without a few drinks under my belt. I didn't know how to keep a checking account, really. I didn't make any money. I was living on air till when I got sober in 32. When I was 32, I was living on a houseboat the size of a king size bed with a sleeping loft. My rent was 300. I was living on maybe 6 or 700, and I didn't know how to be a grown up. I had to grow up at the ripe old age of, and little by little, one day at a time, other sober women helped me um, grow up, and I haven't felt it necessary to take a drink or a drug ever since.